Hello, I'm Christine, and today I'm doing a tutorial on how to sew a wet bag. These are so quick and easy to sew and very, very practical. This is my go-to gift for baby showers. I will make a wet bag and use it as my gift bag, and then I'll put my gift inside. This is also a great gift if you have swimmers in your life. This particular bag is for my mother, for her Mother's Day gift. And she can put her wet swimsuit, her goggles, her swim cap, damp towel inside this bag, and it will keep everything dry in her gym bag. If you stay until the end, I'm going to give you some tips for sewing with PUL, polyurethane laminate, which is the fabric you will want to use if you're making a wet bag. And these tips will make it much easier to sew it more quickly and get better results. I have all my supplies together to make a wet bag for my mother, and I am going to make the same size that I would make if I were making this as a diaper bag. So I have cut my fabric 1 yard long, 36 inches long, and the width is 12 inches. And this is just what I found to be a convenient size. I cut this out using my rotary cutter, and it was really simple to do so. So I have my polyurethane laminated fabric, PUL. It is great for swimsuits. I wouldn't say it's 100% waterproof bag, but it is darn close. I've chosen a really pretty fabric that I think my mother would like. So when she goes to water aerobics or goes to swim laps, she has a nice bag to put her swimsuit in. Now you can just make a straight up zippered bag with this, your sewing machine, clips, and a zipper, and you're good to go. I like to put a handle on my bags, whether it's a diaper bag or if it's going to be used by an adult. And I have this scrap of cotton webbing. And this scrap is not really of a good size to use for other projects, but it's perfect for this. So I'm going to use this to make my handle, and I am going to add a label. Mine says, "I love you." Seems very fitting for a Mother's Day gift. And this is what I'm going to be making it from. Now the first step I'm going to take, because I already have white thread in my sewing machine, is I'm going to sew on my label. Now if I were doing this in a perfect world and not in a world where I have just moved into a house and I don't know where all my sewing supplies are, I would use double-sided tape to adhere the label down so I could get a very nice, precise, and even placement, but I'm going to do the best that I can. I would also use the double-sided tape in attaching the zippers. If you've never used it, it is life-changing. So I'm going to add a strap to the bag, and I just picked a length that I thought would be a good length for a strap to sling over the arm, or when you're reaching inside a gym bag to easily pull this out. I will note I made a little bit larger bag like this for my husband, and that's the bag he takes when we go out of town to place all his dirty laundry in. My boys endearingly call them dirty underwear bags, but it's also convenient to use for laundry. So the zipper size that you'll need, as I've said, this is 12 inches. You want to make sure that your zipper length is longer than the width of the fabric for two reasons. The main reason is you're going to want to cut off these metal tabs at the stop at the end of the zipper and then the stop at the head of the zipper. And that will make for a much neater finish, and you don't have to worry as much about breaking a needle. And I will show you when we come to that point. So I'm going to start off with sewing my label on. So I've sewed my handle. I've got my I love you tag on, and I have zigzagged the end here. This is going to be stitched above this, so I don't have to worry about the fact that I used white thread and it not matching, but this is going to help it keep it from fraying. So the next step is going to be to cut down my zipper. Now I have marked with these clips on the inside is where I want to cut my zipper. And I think I will put a clip on the other side, and then I'm just going to cut straight across. Again, I'm not using good scissors for this. I'm not even using the scissors I cut out my patterns with, the C-Team. This is what those dollar scissors were made for, because you can ruin scissors really quick with zipper tape. So I'm simply going to kind of line up on both sides a clip. It'll help me if I close the zipper to do this. And before I cut this end of the zipper tape, I'm going to move my zipper head to the middle, because I don't want to have my zipper head outside of the usable area of my bag. That would be very sad. I am going to make it a little easier on myself. I'm going to tack a few stitches just in front of where I'm going to cut the zipper tape, so that it's easier to sew the tab on and keep it nice and neat. As you can imagine, if it's not tacked down, they can get twisted and a little bit out of shape, and that's just a little tip for you. So I'm going to go over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to tack the zipper teeth just inside of where I'm going to cut it. So if I cut it here, I'm going to tack it down to the right of where I'm going to cut it. And I will cut the bottom end. It's not as critical with tacking it because the zipper head's in the middle, and I don't think it will separate because I'm working on this project quickly. So I'm going to tack it, and I'll be right back. I want to give you a close-up of what I am doing. I transferred my marking, which I don't think you'll be able to see on this black zipper tape, but I made a blue mark as to where I'm going to cut the zipper. And the blue mark is right on the edge of this presser foot. So I want to do a couple of stitches to the right of where I am going to cut off the presser foot. You notice I have a clip on the end. That's to help keep my zipper teeth together so I can get a little neater tack down and the zipper tape won't twist. And I have moved the zipper pull towards the center of the zipper. The farther you move it out, the more difficult it is to keep the zipper straight. So you might want to pull it in a little bit, but it's out of the way. And I'm simply going to go back and forth a few times and tack this close, and then I'm going to snip at both ends. You'll notice that my needle is not on center, it's all the way to the left, and that'll help me get close to where I'm cutting, but it'll be to the right of where I cut. So here we go. So you can see where I did a little tack stitch here, and I was sure to leave my zipper pull on this side. So now I can go ahead and cut this off. You'll also notice I used a duckbill hair clip to keep my ends together. So I'm just going to cut this right to the left And on the other side, I'm going to cut just here. And the downside of using the C-Team scissors is they don't really like to cut straight, but that's okay. In our next step, we are going to take these 2-inch squares that we prepared and fold them in half. And we're going to clip them on the end of our zipper on both ends. I'm folding it in half, wrong sides together. I'm going to clip it on the end. And I am going to sew 1/4 inch away from this edge. Just down both of these raw edges on both sides. And then I'll meet you back here. Now you will notice I have the raw edges to the outside of the zipper, the folded edge inside, and I sewed it to the top of my zipper where the zipper pull is. And this is why I like to put the tabs on. Notice how the head of my zipper can go all the way to the edge. When I sew my bag shut, this is going to give me a nice clean closure. So I went ahead and just used the white thread since all of this is going to be hidden. I'm going to trim off this excess of fabric from the zipper tabs, and I'm going to attach my zipper to the top of the bag, and I'm going to be sewing it right sides together. Again, the side that has the zipper pull is the right side. So I'm going to place that down on top of the bag. I'm going to clip it in place and I'm going to sew the zipper on. And I will switch over to black thread. I think my fabric here is directional, but it's kind of abstract nature. They could be trees, they could be branches. So I'm not worried about direction here, but if you do, you want to make sure that you think about what side is going to be the front of the bag. I want this to be the front of my bag, so I will consciously think about that when I make my zipper placement. I do not like to put any extra seams in a wet bag than what I need to, because every time you pierce it with a hole, even with using a ballpoint needle like I am doing, it gives another opportunity for leakage. So I like to use this one continuous loop. You could, if you had a directional fabric and it was important to you, you could cut it and put a seam in so you have it all going the right way, but that's not what I'm doing. I want my bag to open up with the zipper on the left side because my mother's right-handed. So all I'm going to do is line the edge of my zipper tape up with the edge of the top of this fabric. And I'm going to pin it with Wonder Clips all the way along the edge. And the reason I use Wonder Clips is because the fewer holes piercing this, the better off you are. Yes, I know that it could be within the seam allowance, but still, the fewer holes, the better. So I'm just going to continue pinning this, and then I'm going to change my thread over to black, and I'm going to sew the zipper tape on. As you can see, I have my zipper foot on. With the zipper this wide, I could have used a regular foot, but I have the zipper foot, might as well use it. And I have loads of clips because, as I mentioned, I do not know where my Dritz Wonder tape is. And it is a wonder. So I got part of this sewn down. I've got the needle down in the fabric, and I've lifted up the presser foot, and I will move, I don't know if I can do this while holding it. No. I will move my zipper foot up here, and I'll continue sewing. And that's just an easy way to sew and not have that zipper head in the way. I have attached my zipper, and because this polyurethane laminate, PUL fabric, is a type of fabric that you cannot iron, I am going to pull it down and then top stitch it. I know I said that I don't like to have a bunch of extra stitches in something that is supposed to be waterproof and not leak, but I like to top stitch down when I'm adding a zipper, just so that this fabric doesn't get caught up in the zipper teeth. So I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to slowly and carefully pull this taut and stitch it down with a minimal stitch. And I think I'm going to switch back over to the white thread so it's not as noticeable. Okay, I have top stitched this down so the fabric will not pull up and interfere with the zipper, and we are very close to being finished. I'm going to take the bottom edge of my bag and I'm going to line it up right side of this bottom edge to the right side of my zipper, which is the side that my zipper pull is on. So I'm going to line this up. I'm going to put lots of clips in it, and I'm very slowly going to sew this top set. Okay, I've sewed the other side, and now I'm going to top stitch using white thread this side down the best I can. I might open it up a little bit as I go to get it under my machine. And we are so close to being finished. Now, PUL fabric does not always like to behave. It started shifting a little bit on me, but I still think it's going to come out nicely. All right, I've top stitched this down, and you can see my bag's a little bit distorted. This fabric can be tricky to work with. I really should have put on a walking foot. So, lesson in not taking shortcuts. So I'm going to take the bag and I'm going to turn it inside out. I will say that I like to have a little bit of headspace at the top where the zipper is. And you can adjust this anywhere you want it. And you can put the zipper in the middle of the bag, way down here, wherever you want it. I want to make it very clear as to which end is the top, so I will put it somewhere like that. So turn it inside out. And now this is important. We're going to open the zipper a little bit because we're going to be sewing the sides closed. And you want to be able to turn it out without having to try to manipulate the zipper from the wrong side. So when you're looking at your bag and say you're right-handed, inside out, the zipper head should be on the right side. So then when it's turned right side out, it'll be on the left and will open left to right. If you have a lefty in your life, you may want to do it opposite. And it would be simple as moving the zipper down to this end and swinging it around. But I'm making this for my mother, who's a righty, and I'm going to decide where I want the zipper to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my zipper about midway in the bag. I'm going to place my strap. When I was editing the video, I found that I was blocking a lot of the view. So I wanted to show up close how I put the handle in. So I've got the bag inside out, and of course it's already sewn now. But you can see this is the raw edge of my handle. This is where I did the zigzag inside the seam allowance to keep it from fraying. And I put this in with a little bit sticking out so that I would know that I would thoroughly catch this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And as I open this up for a peek, you can see this is where my handle is, nice and out of the way. This is the folded edge, is inside the bag. And I've lined up the raw edge of the handle with the raw edge of the side seam. And I sewed it at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to line this up neatly so I get the best look possible. And I'll be right back. All right, I've got it all pinned together. I did measure that I had 2.5 inches on both sides so that it would be level. And that's just what looked good to me. I have the handle inside here, right there. I'm going to sew up both of these ends using a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then turn it out and I'll be finished. Okay, I've sewn up the side seams using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you can see how this PUL has pulled a little bit as I sewed. It would have been much better had I had my walking foot on, and to be honest, the reason why I own a walking foot was the first time I used PUL. It was such a struggle. It's so much easier with a walking foot, but right now I can't leave my hands on all of my sewing items, so I'm doing the best I can with what I have. So I'm going to unzip it, and I'm going to turn it right side out, and let's take a look at it. And as you can see, I did it backwards of what I intended. I'm not cooking on all cylinders with this head comb. So I have this, no, it's just this handle. I have it zipping from left to right, which is what I intended, but the handle's on the right side instead of the left, since it's mostly for pulling out of my mother's gym bag. I don't think she'll mind. Get some of the air out of this. And as you can see, the label's on the wrong side. I am not cooking on all cylinders. So my other sewing tip is, if you're sick, maybe it's not the best time to be sewing. But all in all, I think it's pretty cute. I'll poke out the corners gently, and this is ready to gift my mother. I think she will enjoy it and get a lot of good use out of it. I'm going to be honest with y'all. My tip number 1 is don't sew when you are sick. I was so anxious to finally get something to sew. I wanted to make this for my mother, and I just pushed on, and my brain is just not functioning. So tip number 1, try not to sew when you're sick. Tip number 2 is to use a walking foot. I struggled a little bit with the fabric shifting and also not wanting to move as I was sewing, just because of the nature of the fabric. Part of it is stickier than normal fabric. If you look on the inside, this part wants to stick a little bit to your throat plate, and it would have been much easier had I used a walking foot. As I said in the beginning of the video, we just moved. I've packed up most of my sewing things. I felt very lucky in that I was able to locate the few things I needed to make this bag. So it was a little more difficult without all the correct tools. Tip number 3 is to use the Wonder tape. It's a 1/4 inch tape that's double-sided, and that's a great way of perfectly lining up your edges of your fabric with the absolute edge of your zipper tape. It holds it secure as it goes through the machine, and I highly recommend it. The other tip I have for you is it's been a while since I have sewn with the particular machine that I used for making this. And I remembered how much I don't like that zipper foot on that machine. I had to kind of figure it out again because to me that particular foot is really awkward. I have a narrow zipper foot that I can use on that machine, and I can't put my hands on it right now, so I just made it work. In retrospect, I would have been just as fine with my regular foot because I used a purse zipper that is plenty wide. A zipper foot was not necessary. Again, as I said earlier, fray check is great for your strap. And I'll be honest, I was this close to quickly remaking this bag because my brain shut off and I put the strap on the wrong side than what I intended. But I thought, you know, it's good to show that sometimes we have oops, even if we're a very experienced sewist, and even if we've made something loads and loads of times, like I have with this, my brain just pretty much shut down. So when I sewed my label on, I thought that was going to be on the front, but it's on the back. This little handle is on the left of the bag, or the right as you look at it. It would have been nice for it to be on this end to hold it while it's unzipped, but it's not a game changer. The main purpose of the handle is for pulling it in and out of your bag, or if you wanted to hang it on a doorknob, open it up and fill it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this same label, I have another one, and I'm gonna sew it on this side, line it up, make it look intentional, and just go with it. The other thing I wanted to give you a close-up look is of the zipper tab. Remember I said how it allows for a much neater, better closure? Look at that. See how the zipper head comes right to the edge and you don't have that awkward like opening where sometimes you can zip it where it's not quite closed. Because I left some give in this, the zipper head goes past this zipper tab. So that's why I like this particular method for putting on zipper tabs for the wet bag. So there you have it. I am going to sew another label on, make this look a little more intentional, and I'm going to pop this in the dryer, which is tip number I don't know what, because I said I have a terrible head cold. But you pop your PUL projects in a warm dryer for about 15-20 minutes, and the heat from the dryer will close up some of the holes. So I might have some holes along my seam lines, and that will close it up. This is another way you can do it, covering it with a cloth and then a warm iron. Careful not to melt this fabric. You don't want to put an iron directly on this or you're going to melt it. And you're going to be very sad because you're going to ruin your iron. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks for joining me. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, I'm going to place a link to other tutorials. You'll be seeing more tutorials coming from me in this next year. Until next time, I hope you have a joyful week and that you find the good in all things, especially sewing.